In this video, I will be talking about one of the biggest challenges that I've had to deal with in my life, and that is breaking up and remodeling a Peyronie scar or a Peyronie plaque. So in this video, I'll go ahead and go through a lot of the different techniques that you can use, that I've used, that I plan to use to break up and remodel a Peyronie plaque. As you may know, I have Peyronie. I've had it now for 4 years, and I've largely fixed it. There's little bits here and there that I need to fix, which I will talk about in the beginning of the video, what my status is, what are the things that I'm trying to fix. But I'll go ahead and go through some of the things such as traction, vacuum erection device, and some of the more advanced things such as bundle techniques, fulcrum stretching, sleeve pumping, guasha, shockwave, vibration. So it's going to be a very interesting video. So let's get started. Okay, so first let's talk a little bit about my story. So as you know, I got Peyronie's about like 4 years ago already. I started treatment for it about 1 month into the basically the injury. I got it from an injury from having a rough anal sex. And which, by the way, happens a lot. That's what my doctor told me. It essentially like happens a lot in the gay community. This was having anal sex with a girl, so I love it. I still do anal sex. Like it's awesome. It's like one of my favorite things to do. But essentially, so I started the oral medications around 1 month. Around the 3 month mark, I started the sort of like the traction. Around the 3 months mark, and around the 6 months mark, if I recall correctly, I started using a vacuum. I was deathly afraid of using a vacuum. I don't know why. I thought my dick was gonna explode. I was really scared of it. In retrospective, I should have started it a lot sooner, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the pumping section. So I'll tell you some of sort of like some of the learnings that I've had. So getting started with treatment, the earlier, the better. What Peyronie's essentially is, and if you want a video on me overviewing a Peyronie's, doing like a write-up or doing like a whole video on what exactly is Peyronie's, in that video, go ahead and comment below. I won't go into that too much, what exactly is Peyronie's. I'll just give you a brief overview. But essentially what it is trauma to the penis that creates, that forms scar tissue, fibrosis, a plaque, and in some cases it actually calcifies, so it becomes actually bone. And what it is if you imagine sort of like a balloon, and you put tape on it while it's deflated, because the penis is, it's flaccid most of the time. That's when the scar tissue forms. Once you inflate it, then it starts sort of it starts curving. You lose girth, you lose volume, because the penis can no longer stretch out that part, because the scar tissue is not elastic like your normal tunica tissue is. The normal collagen is like specialized type of collagen, which is scar tissue. So it is super important to begin treatment as soon as possible. You basically do not want scar tissue to form while you're in a flaccid state. So you need to you need to model it. Essentially, you need to do things such as traction to stretch it out, and a vacuum erection device to like basically balloon it out, so that you maintain your length and girth over time. The more that you wait, the harder it is to treat it. So essentially, so I started, traction for me, I started like I mentioned, like 3 months into it. Luckily, traction, worked really well. In my experience, treating for length and restoring length was really easy, and I actually gained length over what I had before. But girth has been like the most challenging thing, which is why I wish I started the vacuum, way sooner than when I did. The vacuum erection device. So length is easy, girth is really hard. When I got diagnosed, I got an ultrasound, and basically, they told me that I had essentially scar tissue. They said some at the base, but really, like, scar tissue takes time to form. So if you get it early on, you're not going to be able to see all the scar tissue. And you're probably not even going to really see it in an ultrasound. So you have to go by. You may not even feel it in a lot of cases. So it's similar to like having scar tissue in a muscle. So that's what I got the ultrasound earlier on. I am meaning to get an updated ultrasound. Yeah, an updated ultrasound later this year. I'm gonna go to my urologist, who is the world famous Dr. Reed in New York. I travel to New York all the time for work, so I'll just go ahead and visit him, and he'll do like a Doppler sound and ultrasound, do an injection, and sort of check things out, see how things are looking. I still experience some loss of like, I wouldn't say loss of girth. It's just the penis is not as straight as it used to be, even though I think I am a little bit girthier than I used to be. But the sort of the section here, I have the penis here to sort of show you, but here the section here is basically somewhat indented. So even though the penis is like fatter than it used to be, the top part is still somewhat indented, which causes a slight curvature. So it's just not it's like fatter, which is fine, but there's still sort of like a sort of indentation here that I can still tell, and I'm working on. So that's sort of what I still looks like. And then what I also feel is here, so in this dorsal part, like here, like at the very top, like here, I feel something really hard. So when I touch it, it's like almost like feels like bone. I don't know if it's something that's like calcified or what it is. So when I sort of like touch it, you can sort of feel it. I think that's sort of the root of a lot of problems, which is really challenging to get that. And I'll talk about it why in the traction section, why it's challenging to get to this part, which is so distally, meaning like near the top. But and sort of, so, as a consequence, this part is sort of like the thinnest part, so it's around 5.5 inches here at the top, and then towards the base is a little bit over 6 inches. So it kind of like like a cone. And so I'll talk about like how I plan on fixing it and some of the things that I've like been trying recently that have been working, and I'll sort of give you some of the tips and tricks of how I dealt with it. So before, it used to have a much larger curvature, now it's a lot less. And also before, it used to lean to the left, so that's how I first noticed it. It started leaning to the left, and I completely resolved that. Like at least it goes straight and not to the left, but there's a slight curvature, which, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't want to like fully resolve, because it hits the spot for girls. It feels a lot better, but it does make some things like sort of uncomfortable. Like, for example, if my girl is like riding me and she's like trying to bounce on it, makes it uncomfortable. Like, I think maybe it's because I'm just not used to it, not used to having that curvature when my dick was like straight, bounce, having like missionary sex. I'm also like really scared that she like will slip out and like it's going to land on it, and I know how like that's how most injuries happen, either missionary or cowgirl or reverse cowgirl. So I think it's also like a mental thing. So it's one like I really just don't like it. So even though it does feel good for girls, like I'd rather just have it my old dick back as far as that goes. Like, even though now it's still longer and even girthier than it was before, which is great, but I still want to like fully resolve it, make it an even like 6 inches across, maybe a little bit more. And really what I want to do is break up this little bits of scar tissue here, finish breaking it up. I've been making a lot of progress recently, finish breaking it up such that I can finally gain distal girth with a lot of the techniques, which I'll go through right now in a second. So yeah, so that was pretty exhaustive. This is going to be a long video, so bear with me, strap in. If you like this video, hit the like button. Hit the like button right now. It's gonna be super informative. So yeah, so that's basically a little bit of my story, my status. People always ask like what are my dimensions. So 8 inches bone press, so about 7.75 non-bone press, in which I already said about or a little bit over 6 in base girth, and which kind of tapers off up to like 5.5 right here at the top. So if you watch all my videos, I talk about it. So people are just kind of whatever. Just go check out all the videos if you want more information. I'm also like not gonna dive too much into a lot of specific. I'm not gonna tell you about how to do traction. I'm not gonna talk too much about it. I have plenty of videos on that, so it's gonna be sort of quick about all the different techniques that you can use to break up the traction, what I'm using. And a big disclaimer: these are like things that I'm doing, and I think that are effective. I'll talk about some things that I've done that I don't think are effective, or not very effective, or just not practical. I'm at the same time, I'm not gonna tell you like go to your doctor and consult with your doctor. No, because like if I talked to my doctor about this, they would like their mind would explode, right? Because these are like way too cutting edge. No doctor, urologist in the right mind would would recommend for you to do some of these things. Besides like traction, a vacuum erection device, which traction is great. Traction is amazing. It's like the number one thing to do but for girls, you really have to like step it up. And I'll tell you why. Vacuum pumping by itself, or traditional vacuum pumping, it's not effective for Peyronies, especially after you've had the scar for a while. It just does not generate enough pressure to really expand that scar tissue. So I'll go more into that in the latter sections where I talk about pumping. So anyways, so that's basically my story. So let's go on to the next section where I talk about some of the things that may sort of influence how successful a lot of these things are. So let's move on to the next set. Okay, so I already talked about the disclaimer gonna reiterate, like, these are not things that I would necessarily recommend. These are things that I'm doing to my own body. If you choose to try these things, that's on you. You take the risk. These are highly risky things that I'm gonna be talking about, but I will be sort of organizing them in terms of like risk. I will have notes on risk, and generally I'm not super prone to doing super risky things. I'm like, pretty happy with what it is right now. I'm sort of being a perfectionist, to be quite honest, to fix things. Like, I don't really have to fix things at this point, but I'm highly motivated, especially because of this channel. I want to keep growing. I have a lot, I think like having this channel has made me a lot more motivated to sort of keep on my career. At least till I hit my my moonshot goal, which is 9 by 7 even. I think that would be my moonshot goal by 9. Bone press would be like 8.5, 8.75 non-bone press if I'm skinny enough. So that's my moonshot goal. I feel like if I hit that goal, like, I'm gonna retire. In any case, so I want to talk a little bit as to some of the notes and some things. So a lot of how effective a lot of these things depend on the severity. Okay, so if you have extremely severe scar tissue where it's extremely like calcified, where a lot of it is already bone and it's been years and you haven't done any sort of treatment, that's really going to affect the severity, and you may have to look at things like medical options such as Xiaflex injections or even surgery. I'm not going to talk about those things in this video because I'm going to focus on things that you can do at home, okay, that you don't have to really pay super expensive things. So so a lot of things depends on your severity. So but at this point, like, the things that I'm fixing recently, like, it's been years since I've had it, and like I said, I feel something hard. Like, I haven't had a recent ultrasound, so I'll ask the doctor when I do to verify, but I feel something very hard right here, which is what I'm trying to fix. I'm trying to break up and remodel. So one thing that you have to be aware of is that when you're doing these things, you will feel discomfort. It's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah, so there will be discomfort. So you have to be very aware that this is not a comfortable process. If you've ever torn any sort of muscle and you've gone through the physical therapy, or you see clips of athletes, like I remember that famous Neymar clip where basically the physical therapist is breaking up the scar tissue on his hamstring and he's like screaming in pain. It's similar, right? Like, it's super uncomfortable. Maybe take some painkillers before you do some of these things, or I don't know. I don't personally do that. I'm okay with the pain. I can deal with the pain, but you may want to do this. Another super important thing is you need to be consistent. So the goal here is you're basically trying to break up the plaque, the scar tissue, such that new healthy tissue can form in the place of the scar tissue. And you have to make sure that you stay in an elongated state, or a blown up state in the case of girth, for as long as possible. Okay, because otherwise you don't want this new tissue to form while you're in a contracted, flaccid state. So you have to be consistent. Once you start, you cannot give up. If you're going to give up and you're not going to be able to put up with the discomfort, don't even bother, because you're just going to complain like, hey, I basically, it's uncomfortable to do these things, and it made things worse. Yeah, of course, if you stop, it's going to make things worse because you're breaking up the tissue. The scar tissue, new tissue is going to form in a contracted state. It's going to make things worse. So you have to make sure that if you get started in any of this process, whether it's using a traction, a BED, and you experience this discomfort, number one, discomfort is normal. It's actually good. You're disrupting the scar tissue. But if you stop, it's going to make things worse. So you need to be consistent, okay? You need to be consistent until everything heals up, and you want to taper off if you do want to stop. Okay, so just kind of bear that, keep that in mind. So I just wanted to make sure to give some of these notes, just in case it's a caveat for anyone that's willing to try some of these techniques. And I'll as I go through each technique, I'll sort of give you some of my thoughts. So with that being said, let's go through the first thing, which is traction. Okay, so first let's start off with traction. So traction has plenty of medical studies that back it up. There's devices like the Restorex, which I have here. I have plenty of videos. I think I definitely have a one in-depth video on the Restorex. I have another video on the dynamic tension adjustment, which is what you want to do if you use something like the Restorex, or really any traction device. Now, the Restorex or the Pennymaster Pro, those are the gold standards, but you can always use something else. Like, this is the Best Extender Pro. This is great. You can actually see the number of tension. You can use something like the Hog extender. I have videos on the Hog, the Best Extender, all that on my on YouTube. So just look up like the hog extender beginner's guide. You'll see how to use it and all that stuff. But essentially what you're going to want to do, this is probably like the easiest low hanging fruit. So you basically just put the extender on, you wear that for at least 90 minutes a day, using the dynamic tension adjustment. And what I recommend is also supplemented with like an all-day stretcher. So all the stretchers, the same thing as traction. Basically put the cup on and you put a leg strap on and you wear that. You can wear that, as you do things around the house. I recommend you do that for like 4 to 6 hours a day supplementally, and you'll get like optimal results. Also, what you're going to want to do is, use the all-day stretcher as you actively break up that plaque, that scar tissue, and that way, like the new tissue is going to come in a like I keep saying, an elongated state. So the good thing is that this actually will restore your length, whether it's reforming the scar tissue or elongating the healthy tissue. It's not really clear. You can see, like if you look at on the microscope when they dissect like the Peyronie's plaque, you can see that after traction, basically the collagen fibers align more normally, whereas before they're basically kind of disrupted and randomly arranged. And you don't have to do that research. Essentially, just it's also very low risk. It's very effective for length, but it's not effective at all for girth. So if you lost girth, like this is not going to do it. Luckily for me, as I said, I started with the traction. So I started with the traction, and I was able to like not only to regain some of the girth. So basically, when I was my normal size was like 7 inches. I went down to like 6.5. I started the traction, regained that 1/2 inch, and within a year I gained 1 inch. So like basically, so now I'm like 8. And that was all thanks to traction. However, for girth, it really did nothing. So again, I recommend that you couple the extender, active stretching, with more like passive stretching, which is the ADS. And I'll talk a little bit more. There's like more techniques, but you can just start with traction and that's going to be like your bread and butter when it comes to length. With that, let's move on to a vacuum. Okay, so next I'll talk about pumping. So pumping is another like sort of gold standard that is absolutely backed up by the data. I've been using it consistently for years. And so I know what I'm talking about at this point. Now the difficult part for me is that I never really measured my girth before. Just sort of looking like at old dick pics, or like dick pics when I just got the injury. There was some definitely like some loss of girth from the Peyronies. But now that I look at more recent ones, it actually looks thicker. However, I still have that indentation. So basically, even though it's thicker than it was before, I still have like the indentation here, which when I sort of touch around, I can feel like scar tissue basically here, and then up here I feel like something hard, really hard up here. So, and then like over here I just feel like kind of really hard scar tissue. At the bottom there's nothing, so I know it's abnormal tissue that's there. I can tell. So basically, I have gained girth. But the thing is, like, I've regained girth around that scar tissue. So the scar tissue itself just never really expanded. So I highly recommend you get something like this, like a Love. I just washed this. This like the Love cylinder. This one is 2.125. There it is. I recommend that you get something snug, especially for the not too snug, but essentially what you're going to want to do is sort of expand, right, like those dents, that loss of girth, that scar tissue. So this is how I've used it for all this time. Basically, I have a little sleeve here for comfort, put it in, and I pump. I've cycled through like bigger ones, smaller ones. Highly don't use like a bath mitt or anything like that. Just get something like this, super basic, and you can buy different types of cylinders. The thing is that while I did, like I mentioned, I did regain a lot of the girth technically. I still have a dent, and I still have a bit of a curvature from that dent up here. So what I noticed is that and it's funny, is I'm actually going to do the whole clone a dick one, so you'll see exactly, and I'll show it to you so you guys can see exactly what I mean without actually showing the dick, just looking at the mold of the dildo. But anyways, so there's like a dent like up here toward the distal part. And so what I noticed is I gain a lot of girth here at the base, right? Because when you're pumping, basically a lot of, especially if you do something like the sleeve trick, a lot of that pressure goes towards the base as you sort of start expanding. You can tell like what's going to happen is you're going to pack the top, and then you're sort of, you know, the middle and the towards distal part, it's not really going to pack. And so, you know, but still, this is absolutely critical. Like, you absolutely need to do a VED, vacuum erection device. Yeah, so it's very, I would say it's very effective for girth if you use it early on. It's only marginally effective afterwards, so you kind of have to sort of do other things to sort of you know, help it out essentially. But it's absolutely critical. So if it's early on your, you know, sort of like your injury or whatever, I absolutely recommend that you get started on this right away. But by itself, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot after the scar tissue has settled and sort of you know, at least to like sort of resolve it and break it up. It's not going to do much. What it is going to do is going to sort of enhance the girth around it, like expand the healthy tissue over time, but it's not going to be enough to really break up the scar tissue. So you're going to need to do other things. So yeah, so that's basically the primer on vacuum on the VEDs, and I'll show you some of the things that I'm doing more recently that basically can make it more effective. So with that, I'll go through the next thing, which is a Shockwave. Okay, so another thing that you can do at home is like the Shockwave. You can buy like this Phoenix. I've been using it. But by itself, I don't think it's like super effective. I think you need to combine it. Even in the manual, it tells you need to combine it with vacuum. I'm actually combining it with traction, which I'll talk about in the next section. But if you have a little bit extra money, this has been working pretty good. I see some results. It's hard to say like if by itself it does anything. I don't think it does. I think like it helps, marginally helps with other things. You know, it really from what like other like studies and things that I've seen, it won't do anything against something that's been calcified. For that, I believe you need like focus Shockwave, or the ones like the more powerful machines that marginally may do something. But I think this can help if it's like more of a lighter scar tissue, and you can sort of combine it with traction. But yeah, I kind of like recommend this. I've been using this pretty consistently lately, and I'm seeing some results. But again, I'm also been trying a lot of other things, which I'll talk about in a second, to really like help resolve that scar tissue. But I think this is a good tool if you can afford it to buy it for the, you know, for your sort of your toolbox. And with Shockwave, it's super safe. You can do it. It's really nothing that you need to worry about. But the next technique that I'll be talking about is really dangerous, and it's something that I don't necessarily recommend, but I really want to talk about that because I think it's critical, and I think like it's unlocked a lot of things for me. Okay, so now I want to talk about Jelqing. So yeah, Jelqing I generally don't recommend. It's especially if you have like a healthy penis. Just pumping alone, I think it's going to give you all the gains over time, super safe. But if you actually need to break up scar tissue, I think you need to Jelq. Like, I think you know, and if you want to be a little bit more dangerous, and you're really committed to doing this, and you're a little bit more risk prone, I think Jelqing is the way to go. I've been doing this a lot lately, and you really need to figure out how to Jelq in a manner that it's putting the pressure on that scar tissue. So there's a lot of like, I don't just Jelq like traditionally, which is like, you know, you go like this with a okay grip and then you go up. Like, I don't feel that in the scar tissue. I do like the reverse Jelqs. I believe they're called the mod Jelqs. And you know, I'll hold it like at the base, and I'll do this. I'll sort of like kind of like push it down as I go up, so that way like the pressure really kind of goes to the scar tissue. Yeah, so there's like you have to kind of play around with it. Yeah, I may like, you know, I may actually write down some of the different techniques that I'm doing, but you're basically going to do this different types of Jelqs, and you're gonna have to figure out, and you're gonna feel the scar tissue. And essentially what you're gonna want to do is what I like to put is like put like a soft you know, girth band on, so like this, you know, and that sort of helps it stay in a chub. And then like, you know, I'll sort of like kind of massage and like really do the Jelq, and really like try to focus on techniques kind of like this, focus on techniques that really like, you know, are going to break up that tissue. And you're gonna have to be somewhat like not too aggressive. You're not gonna feel pain, but there should be some sort of discomfort where you're actively like you know, breaking up that plaque. So it's dangerous. I think just do it at your own risk, but it's something that I've been doing, that I feel it like I can feel like if I what I'm doing a lot is basically what and I'll go through my technique towards the end of the video, my whole routine. But what I'll do is like I'll break up the scar tissue with some of these techniques, some of the other techniques that I'll talk about in a little bit, and then I'll pump, and I can literally I feel the disrupted scar tissue, and it's painful. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, it's painful to even pump afterwards, because you're basically even expanding that scar tissue even more. So I highly recommend that you implement Jelqing, and you figure out those techniques to really like focus on the scar tissue. So that's kind of it for all the base techniques. Next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk about combinational things, so things that you can combine to make things even more effective. Okay, so next I want to talk about some of these combinational things. So for example, I just finished talking about Jelqing. Jelqing, yeah. So something that I recommend is whenever you do any of these things, whether whether it's traction or Jelqing, you should finish it off with pumping, because like I said, you want to retain that shape. You want to heal in an elongated state. So as you're breaking up this tissue, or whether it's Shockwave, whether you're breaking up this tissue actively, you want to make sure that you expanded, and that you remain in that expanded state as long as possible, which is why I recommend pumping, especially after Jelqing. So this brings me sort of to my next topic, which is sort of combinational things. A lot of these things are things that I'm doing right now. So one thing that I'm doing is, like I mentioned, I still have some of the scarring here towards the top, and like a hard plaque that I can feel here right below the glands. And so what happens is, after the years of pumping, is the bottom has sort of expanded, but sort of the middle part really hasn't as much. Like, it still has expanded. Like, I think it's just the expansion around the healthy tissue around the scar tissue. But what I'm trying to do is really focus more internal pressures here on this section, break up the plaque, and then I want to put even more pressure. So sometimes after Jelqing, it's quite intensive, like the discomfort. So I'll take some painkillers. I just just experimented with that yesterday, and it was quite helpful to be able to take the discomfort of pumping afterwards. So the next thing that you can do is, so this is like your normal pump, and what happens is, when you put it in, sort of pressure gets evenly distributed across the shaft. And what I want to do is be able to focus the pressure sort of on the distal, the top part. So something that I've been doing a lot is called sleeved pumping. So essentially, I'll have like a long sleeve. So this is like, I forget what diameter this is, like the larger one, the larger total men one. This is great for me. So I just put it in as deep as possible. That's what she said. So something like this. So what essentially does is sort of prevents a lot of the expansion from happening at the bottom part, and sort of and you might have like I want to maybe experiment with like tighter ones to really prevent it even more, tighter sleeves. But essentially what that does is it constricts, it stops the pressure from being applied to the bottom one as much as possible, and more pressure to be applied to the top. And so what I do is my routine is I'll do like, I start at 5 inches of mercury, go up to 7 inches of mercury, go up to like 9 inches of mercury, go up to 10, and I'll go up to 12 inches of mercury. And it really, really causes like discomfort as this really expands this distal part. And after I do that for like 30-40 minutes, after I take it off, you can see like the top part is more expanded than the bottom part. And it makes makes the penis a lot more healthier looking. And that's basically my goal over time, is to break up that scar tissue, focus it on this, and then heal this part in an elongated state. So so that's one of my big tips and tricks, is to using the sleeve pumping. So this is another technique to help break up that distal scar tissue. Okay, so the next trick that I want to show you, something that I've talked about a lot already on my channel, is called fulcrum. So essentially, you have something like this. This is the hog extender using a vacuum cup here. And basically what you're doing is with the fulcrum is you want to focus the tension on the fulcrum of the curvature, or where the scar tissue is. The difficulty is this with one of these vacuum cups, is that it sort of doesn't apply tension to like the most distal part, which is, I think, for me, why I have been having a lot of trouble sort of getting rid of the scar tissue right in this little section here, at least with a vacuum cup. But it's still, I think this little trick helps out a lot. And essentially what you're gonna do is just put like a little stick here, and that creates like a little fulcrum, right, like this. And then you apply tension, and you can put like a stick, and that's called like fulcrum extending, right? Or you can use something like a strap. In the case of a lateral curvature, you can sort of strap it and then pull it to the side. I have videos on both the stick trick or fulcrum extending and the strap trick. I'll put links to it here and then the description below. So if you're interested more, check that out. So that's another trick. Okay, and then another thing, you can do a lot of things while you're under traction. So if you're under traction, it really like starts stretching out that scar tissue. So you can do additional things. So for example, here you have a gua sha, a little scraper, and they do this in physical therapy to break out scar tissue in the muscles. So why not try it here? So essentially what you're going to do is, as you stretch, you basically, apply some tension, and you would do it exactly as they would in physical therapy. And I'm fairly aggressive, so you're gonna want to put like some lube. Some silicone one is a little bit better than the water-based lube. You do that, but again, the problem here is this vacuum. The vacuum one will cover a lot of this, which makes it difficult to get to so the more distal parts. But if your scar tissue is sort of like in here, it's a lot easier. So you're basically going to use the gua sha tool. And again, remember, after you're breaking up all the scar tissue, you're going to want to finish off the session with a pumping session so that you heal in an elongated state, especially if you're trying to focus on like popping out some girth loss. That's going to be really helpful. Another thing that you can do is, I mentioned Shockwave. So while the penis is on a stretch, again, like there's tension already on the scar tissue, so you can use the Shockwave to basically sort of target all that scar tissue as there's tension of it. So it should, in theory, make it a little bit easier for the Shockwave to really get to that, to break up the scar tissue, right? Because it's not just sitting there. You're applying tension, and it's really up to you. I think I would do it like up to like 8 pounds or so of tension while I'm doing all of this here with the vacuum cup. Again, though, this thing kind of gets in the way, which I kind of have like a fix for which I'll review in a little bit. But yeah, that's another thing, is you basically extend and do the Shockwave on top of it. So you can do both, right? Like you start session, extend, do the gua sha, then do the Shockwave, right? These are all like things that I'm doing, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my routine towards the end of the video. Now, another thing that you can do is called bundle extending. So what this bundle means is that you're twisting the penis, so you should be 100% soft for this. So you have it here, and you're essentially, there's some of these extenders have like the built-in full bundle extending knob. So essentially you're like sort of twisting the penis, and I like to do 180 degrees. And then you apply tension, and then on top of that you could potentially do the gua sha on top of that to sort of break out that tissue. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do the bundle, and then you can really sort of see, then I'll put like the stick sort of at the bottom to push out, because when you twist it, now the curvature is going to be towards the top, right? Because you twisted it. So now I put the fulcrum at the 180 degrees. So I'll do a fulcrum bundle extending to really focus on that, and maybe you do the gua sha on top of that as well. I think I've done that a few times, and that's to really, again, you're just focusing on breaking that scar tissue, right? And again, it's going to be uncomfortable. Don't do it if it's like tight pain. Again, these are things that I'm doing myself. So but again, these are generally super dangerous, and I would not advise these unless you actually like want to are serious about breaking up that scar tissue. Another thing, so I'll talk about a little bit more of my routine lately. So like I mentioned, I do a lot of the combinational things, and I'll actually add vibration to it as well. So what I'll essentially do these days is I'll extend for like an hour, then I'll do another hour of active extending work. So what does this mean? I'll turn on the motor, and I'll do fulcrum extending, right? I'll do a bundle extending. I'll do fulcrum bundle extending. I'll do the gua sha. I'll do the gua sha too, sometimes under bundle or not bundled. I'll this with the little motor on. And shout out to Chess, who is I think he's a mod in Basim's Discord, who gave me this idea about a bundled vibration extending, and so I've been combining it with fulcrum and gua sha as well. And again, the idea is just to break up the scar tissue. And what this does is does this little micro tugs here, vibro tugs, whatever you call it. And basically, kind of like helps really like provide sort of more tension and active dynamic traction, right, to that scar tissue. So you're basically doing that, and you can also do the Shockwave, right? So like you put it on, maybe you put the fulcrum on, you put the motor on, and then do the Shockwave, and that you're like actively attacking it. Like you do the gua sha, fulcrum, vibration, you're actively attacking that scar tissue, right? And like again, I feel this, and by the end of it, it feels like super discomfort. Like, and I tore my hamstring before, and I got the wash it done before. It's the same thing, right? And that's why when they do the same thing with the physical therapy, you're advised to stretch at home to sort of use it, and over time, like the new tissue sort of comes in and gets rid of like the scar tissue, right? You're also sort of releasing like the healing growth factors. Forget exactly what they're called, but yeah, basically the body starts breaking down that scar tissue, starts eating it up as well. You're actively breaking it up. The body takes it away, and then you have to heal up. So after all of this, that's basically in my 1 hour of active. If I have time, I'll do the Jelqing as well. I've been pretty diligent on the Jelqing, the Shockwave, the Fulcrum, Guasha and Bundle, not as much. It's just, I think because also I take Cialis, like it's hard for me to be fully flaccid, and the, for me to do active like Fulcrum and Bundle, and Guasha, you need to be 100% flaccid for best results and for best comfort. Otherwise, like I feel like if I'm getting an erection and it's like twisted up, it's like very uncomfortable, and I just take it off. And then at the end of it, basically I go and I do the sleeve pumping. So I'll do that for like 30 minutes. Then maybe I'll, and one thing about it is make sure that it's somewhat snug, such that like, and that way, like your base is going to fill up the tube first, right? And then more of that pressure is going to go towards that dent that you're trying to like really pop out, right? So that, that's another one that it should be somewhat snug, so that you're really focusing that tension on those dents, okay? Because like, yeah, you're not really trying to like increase the girth. You're trying to break up the scar tissue so that you have like an evenly sized girth penis. But yeah, sometimes, yeah, so I'll pump with the sleeve for like 30 minutes until like the distal part is fully packed, and then if I want to do a little bit more work on the bottom part, I'll put like a smaller sleeve, and that way like the whole penis should be fully packed in the cylinder. And that's basically the end of the session, and that should I basically call it a day afterwards. So all in all, I spent about like 3 hours doing all this 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, time permitting. It's kind of annoying, challenging, but as someone with Peyronie's, I think you're highly motivated, right, to like get the whole penis back. I again, having a curvature is really not that bad. It's really not that bad, but I want my old straight as a narrow penis. I don't care. It makes some things more difficult, like cowgirl, reverse cowgirl, just a lot of these things. Like I want my old straight penis back, like honestly. And I want to unlock the girth gains, right? Like if I want to have over 6 and I want to have an evenly sized girth penis, and I prefer also the look of a baseball bat. I don't like a cone shape. I want a baseball bat. So that's why I'm focusing a lot. And so also, even if you're not trying to actively break up scar tissue, and you just want that baseball bat look, I think all the things that I'm talking about, minus the scraping, minus the some of these things like just Jelqing and the sleeve pumping, will help you get that baseball bat penis. Okay, so remember how I mentioned that using the vacuum cup can potentially make it difficult to get rid of scar tissue that's towards the glands, towards the distal part of the penis. I found one way to really like actively target that. So that's called using the Total Man compression plate. I have a video about this, so check it out. I'm not going to go into too much detail as to how to use it, but I'll tell you exactly what to do to break up that distal part of the scar tissue, whereas like something like this will basically not get to it, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to put on the compression plate, and then you're going to put it on the extender, right? And this is going to let you sort of focus a lot of that tension on this part right here, right? You're not going to lose any more tension towards the bottom, and you got to wear something comfort here. This also mimics a lot of the old school sort of noose extenders. A lot of people say that they're dangerous. There's a lot of studies that actually used to use this for many years, and there's very, very minor side effects. The thing is, don't use too much tension. Like with this, I probably won't go over like 5-6 pounds when I'm using something like this. And then on top of that, so what I'll do is I'll use this, right, put tension on it, and then I'll do a fulcrum. So I'll put the stick as close to the glands as possible, right? And this really helps focus the tension on that top distal part. So I'll do this, and then I'll do the guasha. So I'll go here and I'll like really scrape the shit out of here, really like really break that shit up, get in there, get that fucking break up. That's what I feel is calcified. I don't know if it's just really hard, at least in my case. And I've actually felt it like diminish quite a bit, and I'm starting to get some more girth gains on the distal part. So this little compression plate is great, so you can do all the other things that I talked about. So the fulcrum, do the guasha, you can do the Shockwave as well here. And so this little tool is amazing for when you have that scar tissue. This can be uncomfortable. It's kind of annoying. It's not as comfortable as the vacuum one, granted. But it's, these are the things that you have to go through to sort of really, get rid of that scar tissue. So this is part of my routine. Again, like I'm not doing it as much as I wish I could do it, just because, unless you're able to remain fully flaccid, this can be quite uncomfortable. But I basically fap one out and I'll try to do this afterwards so that I don't get as hard. And that compression plate is a real key. It's a big tip. And it's really part of my arsenal on how to break up the scar tissue. So that's basically kind of like insight into my routine. Again, I want to, just keep pushing it, that it's going to be discomfort. You might want to take some painkillers. If you start, don't stop. I'll go through that more towards the end of the video. But then let me go through some things that I've tried that actually didn't really work too well. Okay, so now some things that I'm not a big fan of. So I think using, first of all, is DMSO plus X. I have a whole video on DMSO. I used it for a while. The big problem is the application is just really like cumbersome to use. It's kind of a big deal. It just takes a while to make. It's like really messy. But I think that if you have the willpower in that time, and you apply it after your active sessions, I think that's great. It's going to soften up the tunica. It's going to prevent scar tissue forming, especially if you combine it with pentoxifylline. Also, you could take pentoxifylline orally as well, although that may not reach the plaques to prevent scar, like, where's the collagen type 4, the scar type. But yeah, so it's just, I think DMSO is great. I think it can work, and a lot of the theory is sound. But it's just, for the application, it's just too messy. It's just too much. It's not something that I can be consistent with. Unfortunately, if you look at Ronell's ChemPE blog, he was a big proponent of it. But for me, I think I replace it with just healing in an elongated state, healing in an expanded state with the pump. So that's sort of my replacement. And so that's one, this DMSO, but maybe I'll bring it up like later in the year. I don't know. But right now I'm pretty happy with all the other things that I already talked about. The other thing that I want to talk about, which, actually, some of the big names in the sphere talk about, is called erect bends, in the Peyronie's world, in the implant world. It's called modeling. What happens is basically, and they do this when they insert like a penile implant. So they say somebody has a big curvature and they insert the penile implant, and they don't get any other surgery to sort of do any sort of excision and grafting or the scratch technique. And if they don't do any of that, it's just a straight penile implant. What they'll do is they'll inflate the implant, and then they'll do modeling. So they'll basically, make it like that. And sometimes if you watch the surgery videos, you'll hear like a crack, like crack. And you'll literally crack, and they left the implant more inflated than they would with a normal patient, because they know, again, it's critical to heal in an elongated, expanded state, right? So that's what they do, and you can literally hear the crack in these surgery videos. For me, this has not worked very well. One, because I think like the more quote unquote calcified is like really in the distal parts, and I can't really like bend that too much. But I also have curvature like here, right? And I've tried it, like I've tried bending it like in an erect or semi-erect, and it does nothing. Like it really does anything. If anything, I feel like it's more dangerous, because you could potentially cause issues at the bottom because you're erect, so now you're creating tension at the bottom, right at the bottom here. And I really that's where I feel more discomfort, more so than breaking up anything. I know people say like, oh yeah, just do the semi-erect bends. I don't believe in them. I don't like them. I've tried them for years. Didn't do anything. I think they're kind of dangerous, honestly. Well, that's not to say all the other stuff is not dangerous, but yeah, I'm not a big proponent of erect bends or semi-erect bends, even though they are used in surgery, even though they are used in the context of penile implants. It just hasn't worked out for me. One, it might be, again, the calcification. Two, the degree of the bending. So I don't know. That's just not something that I can sort of recommend, or something that I'm actively doing. It just hasn't done anything for me. So yeah. So with that being said, let's move on to our final thoughts. Okay, that was on exhaustive video, right? Sorry I had to show you all the things sort of here. I was honestly a little too lazy to move the camera around or anything, but I feel that that was a pretty good visuals. If you have any sort of questions, post on Reddit on Getting Bigger and tag me. That's the best way, honestly, because I get really busy and I can't answer all my DMs or even my YouTube comments all the time. So that's the best way. I'm on Reddit, and if I see it, and then other people can chime in and talk, and there's going to be a discussion. So I'd rather you put a post on Getting Bigger or the Science of PE. That's another newer one. And if you tag me, I'll see it, and most likely I'll respond there, or at least other people will respond there as well. But yeah, again, I want to remember that unless you're prepared to have some discomfort, unless you're prepared to actively do this consistently, constantly, pump at the end, heal, nail, and get it stayed, either with pumping, or another thing I kind of forgot to mention in the video is using an all-day stretcher. If you're focusing on length, like if you're focusing on girth, which is what I am right now, I'm breaking up the scar tissue to regain girth, then I highly recommend that you heal post-pump, that you pump at the end. If you're focusing on length, then I recommend that you do all that, and but you use an all-day stretcher to sort of heal, remain in that state longer using an all-day stretcher or ADS. Yeah, check out I have a review of the Total Man ADS, which is the one I recommend, and have a bit of a mini tutorial on how to use it there. If not, check out the hog extender newbie video. I also talk about it there as well. So it's very important to keep going, or don't even bother, don't start at all. I don't want, honestly, don't even take this as a set of recommendations for you to do. This is just my insights, years in the making of trying to get trying to regain and really finally fix my Peyronie's and get rid of that final sort of scar tissue. My biggest motivator, again, is I kept saying this, is to not just to regain my girth, because I've definitely gained girth over time, even a girthier than I was before pre-Peyronie's, but I want to unlock the girth gains on the distal part, and I want to have an even penis, and I want to have the baseball bat penis. So that's basically sort of my motivation and what I'm doing this for. So, and again, when it comes to motivation, hey, I'm not doing this this channel. I don't really take donations. I don't really I don't do anything sponsor. No one pays me for anything. Even when I review things, I don't get paid. I don't have affiliate links. I don't have any sort of financial incentive as of today. Maybe that may change in the future to this channel. So all I ask, if you like this video, which is very exhaustive, it is one of the hardest challenges that I ever had to deal with in my life. If you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a nice comment or a bad comment, just whatever helps the algorithm. But more so than anything, hit that subscribe button, because if you're at this part of the video, I assume you got some value out of it. So yeah, if you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, check out these other videos which may be relevant to you, and I'll see you next time. Peace.